Hello and welcome back to Hard Count Sports. This is the third episode of the podcast. It's great to be back. Today we've got many topics to talk about. Of course, the main one being Julio Jones has now been traded to the Tennessee Titans, which is amazing. And I can't believe that is the team that he's landed at, but we'll get to that later. We've got Noah Turner tonight. He's going to be interviewed. He's out of James Madison University, which is an FCS program, a pretty successful one at that. But Zach, how are you? How are you keeping, and what have you been getting up to this week?
I'm doing very well, Ross, and I'm very excited about today. I think it'll be a really good interview with Noah Turner and to hear a bit about another position. We've had two different positions. We had one defense and one offense the past two episodes, and now we've got another offensive position. I think it'll be a really, really good discussion. I've had an interesting week. I had a laptop trouble on Friday night, which was not fun. Mm-hmm. However, I got a replacement and I'm ready to rock tonight, which I'm quite excited about. But Great. Apart from that, I haven't really been doing too much. I've just been sitting watching Netflix and Game Pass and, just the standard things.
Yes. Yep. Well, myself, I've been taking a few deep dives into film. This guy, Noah Turner, who we've got later on in the show, he's an absolute beast at the tight end position. And can't wait to interview him, and I'm sure you're the same. Mm-hmm. We'll come to him later, but this week I've kind of just been looking over some film on him and kind of taking a bit of a deeper dive into what he does and what makes him successful at that position. But I kind of want to get the ball rolling on some breaking news. As I alluded to just a few seconds ago, Julio Jones has been traded to the Tennessee Titans, AFC. Bit of a powerhouse now in that AFC. They've got Tannehill, they've got AJ Brown, they've got Derrick Henry, and now they've got a major player added to that group of people who are already good in their own right.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking back on it, I had thought about, maybe he'll go to the Patriots, maybe he'll go to the Colts, but the answer was always there. Julio Jones was always linked to the Tennessee Titans. AJ Brown, I'm sure we'll discuss with his recruiting process, and as well Derrick Henry working out next to Julio Jones throughout the offseason. The clues were there. So in a way, I shouldn't really be surprised, but in another way, I am. And for me, I think it's a great fit. I think, that offense is, it's given Tannehill another great weapon, but also it's given Derrick Henry a bit of a break. And for me, I think this will be a defensive nightmare for any matchups in the future. Yep. What are your initial thoughts on it, Ross?
Initial thoughts are it's an amazing move for the Titans. They just kind of needed a player to push them over the edge into being a Super Bowl contender. And they've done that through this move. Now, the thing I'm not too sure about is the defensive unit they have. They're stalwart on offense, no doubt. You look at the players they've got there, but are they all that on defense? And, it'll tell the season. Defense wins championships. That is the saying. As the saying goes, defense wins championships. And we'll see this season, can they go to the Super Bowl? Not this year, but I think they've done enough to put their name in for the playoffs in 2021. The thing I can't get over is the fact that he went for a second rounder in 2022 and a fourth rounder in 2023. And then not only that, but the Tennessee Titans got a sixth rounder in return.
I know. I cannot believe that Julio Jones went for so little. Yes, you can factor in that the guy's 32, and I know last season he did have injury problems, but for me, Julio Jones is another animal. Like, you think of wide receivers, and you look at the stats, and he stands out. I mean, yes, he had a down year last year, but I still think Julio Jones has plenty of life left in him. And for me, you've alluded to how this is a great deal for the Tennessee Titans. For me, I think the real winner out of all of this is AJ Brown. I think AJ Brown, we saw last year, he clearly idolizes Julio Jones. And I think with the double team that Julio Jones attracts on defense, that's just going to open up so many different targets for AJ Brown.
And that's 100% right. And AJ Brown is a highly coveted man when it comes to defensive scheming. You know, they're all over him. You look back at the tape this year, you actually look at the play that put them out of the playoffs against the Baltimore Ravens there. Tannehill dropped back. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 3rd and 10. No, it was 4th and 10. He dropped back. He had Derrick Henry to his right, but downfield he had AJ Brown wide open, but he was double teamed.
Yeah.
Corey Davis was double teamed and AJ Brown was open. And this is the story of how these things go. You know, you have AJ Brown open, you have another receiver who's a great receiver, but he's maybe not. It's all about kind of matchups and looking at who's free downfield. And Julio Jones is great to distract players. And even if defenses choose to put 2 men on Julio, you have AJ Brown there, and vice versa. And Derrick Henry can pass or can catch the ball out of the backfield, no doubt. The other thing I suppose to take into account is jersey number. It's always a massive deal when it comes down. 11 is not free on the Titans, and
true, yeah.
A lot of people speculate that Julio will take number 8. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was quite interesting because previously in the offseason, AJ Brown said, Julio, you can take 11, do whatever you want, you know. If it means that you come, that's great. However, recently he changed his tune and started saying, no, 11's mine. I'm not going to change it for anybody. So it will be interesting to see if he moves back to 8, you know, as number Alabama. And with the current name changes, which will, or the current number changes, which I know we'll also discuss, you know, that will be possible for him to do. You know, so it'll be interesting that way. And as you alluded to as well, for me, I think the aspect that makes this trade the best trade for the Tennessee Titans this offseason is the fact that they replaced Corey Davis. Corey Davis was lost to the Jets in free agency. And in my opinion, you give me the choice between Julio Jones and Corey Davis. I'm sorry, I'm taking Julio Jones every single time.
Definitely. Yeah. And I put out a poll, actually, going back to the Super Bowl contender thing. I put out a poll during the week on the Instagram page, and a lot of people seem to think it was a 60 to 40 split on the fact that, well, I suppose it's tighter than you think, but the majority of people decided that the Titans are a Super Bowl contender this year. But I kind of want to flip over to the side of the Falcons. Let's look at them for a second. You know, you take Julio from that offense, right? Who do you have now to fill in the void? You've got a pretty good receiver in Calvin Ridley. If anyone had them on his fantasy or on your fantasy team this past year, you'll know that he is more than capable of filling in for that wide receiver 1 spot. Okay, so he's definitely there. And now you draft Kyle Pitts with the 4th overall pick, an absolute stud out of Florida. You know, not really a tight end. He can do anything. You can put him in the slot. You can put him even out wide, you know, in the kind of Z or Y spot. You know, you can move him around the field. It's like chess. But I want to know, where are the other wide receivers on the roster? Who are the other wide receivers on the roster? I know Russell Gage is there. I don't know if he's legit. I think there's another guy called Zacchaeus. It's his second name, Zacchaeus. I don't know his first name, but I'm just trying to figure out, what do the Falcons do now on offense to fill that void?
Well, for me, I think Calvin Ridley obviously did enough last season to prove to the organization that he's a worthy replacement to Julio Jones. Maybe he won't fill that entire void because not many players are Julio Jones. I really high him in high. I hold him in high regard. I think that he is one of the greatest wide receivers to ever grace the NFL. And so for that, I don't think he's replaceable. However, we saw whenever he was injured throughout the year, and Julio had an injury that kept him out of the last 4 weeks of last season, and you know, Calvin Ridley held his own. He was there for Matt Ryan whenever Matt Ryan needed to throw the ball, and I do think, yes, the Falcons struggled last year and it wasn't their greatest season. And obviously, you know, there were a lot of difficulties and they did face a lot of problems. But I think that Calvin Ridley was one of those players that really stood out, and they were one of the talking points that gave Falcons fans hope. For me, I think Kyle Pitts as well. And whenever they drafted him, you know, there was talk that they were maybe going to trade that draft pick away in order for to gain some
pick up more capital.
exactly for the future. However, I think taking Kyle Pitts is definitely going to change that offense, and I think Matt Ryan will be very grateful for him next season.
Yeah.
So it did make it easier to move on from Julio Jones, but then again,
Definitely.
he is Julio Jones, so
Yes, he is. But a team has never traded a first-round pick for a wide receiver over the age of 30. I keep on coming back to that when people say, "No, why didn't he go for a first? What's happening here?" You have to look at history, okay? There has never been a receiver, as I say, over 30. He's never gone for that much capital. And, yes, okay, I do think Julio's maybe an exception. But is he at this age? I don't know. A lot of people want to say that Julio's going to make massive difference. I actually think that he's going to make very minimal difference, but the Titans are good anyway.
Yeah.
And, we've been over that. We know, I do think at the end of the day, with or without Julio, Titans are in the playoffs. Titans are possibly, if they play well enough, at that game in February. BR Gridiron put out a post during the week showing the Falcons kind of starters, what would be starters heading into this year. And this is the Falcons. And I'm kind of looking at them thinking, I don't even know half of these guys. And I would be pretty confident to say that I could name you every starting offense in the league, but apparently not the Falcons, because there was guys on there that completely had me confused.
Yeah.
Now I know they have at running back. They have Mike Davis.
Yes.
Now they did last season. They had Todd Gurley. Now he's still a free agent, so you never know. But Mike Davis, a guy he played in the Panthers, pretty good. Seemed to be quite good in the absence of Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, did come in and play quite well. So, that's possibly another way that the Atlanta Falcons could get at you on the ground. But time will tell.
Exactly.
But that's great. Julio Jones has got what he wants. He's got to move, and he's got out of Atlanta. Let's move on now to OTAs. They're still going on, as we mentioned last week. They started, and we were kind of giving our initial thoughts on them. There's a few news updates coming out of that. I want to start off with the Cowboys. Dalton Schultz. That's a name. That's a hard name to pronounce. He is actually doing a bit of extra training with George Kittle at the moment. And as far as I know, there's a few tight ends, as we'll be interviewing one later. There's a few tight ends, though, that are kind of going off and doing their own wee thing. I think George Kittle's involved in that, Travis Kelce. Possibly, there's another one, possibly Greg Olsen. Now, maybe not. Now, I could be wrong, but there's a few guys in the mix there. Dalton Schultz is the latest to be added to that. And I think that's very good, because this is a guy who's obviously trying to fight for that number one spot on the roster at tight end in Dallas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for me, it's quite interesting, because usually, it's team first. However, these guys are sort of forming a brotherhood in a sense, a tight end brotherhood, looking out for each other. And obviously, you've seen history tells you that the tight end position, you can get paid. George Kittle inked a deal there not that long ago, made him very rich as well. Travis Kelce's done the same, so it's class for me to see these guys look out for each other and to grow in the tight end position. And I think it's fantastic for them individually. Maybe not for the teams. I don't know what the teams feel about that, but time will tell. And for me personally, whenever I've been watching the OTA, something that's always strikes me is, the new players that you've gained in free agency and how they're adapting to the team. And two in particular, I've seen a lot of our Teddy Bridgewater in Denver. And obviously that was a need for the Broncos, having to add another weapon to their quarterback room. And so it's been interesting for me to see who Teddy Bridgewater has been picking out in practices. And for me, I think his next favorite target is Jerry Jeudy. As well as that, we've seen Stafford with a bunch of new toys on offense. And
you mentioned Jerry Jeudy there, and we're actually going to be doing in our third segment today, we're going to be kind of giving a few players that we think will have massive breakout years in 2021. Jerry Jeudy possibly could be in that conversation. Now, I don't want to give anything away here, but he could be in that conversation. And moving on with the news, we mentioned another pass catcher, Daz Newsome, picked up by the Chicago Bears in the draft, the 2021 draft. This is a wee bit more unfortunate news. He's suffered a shoulder injury during the OTAs. Now, this is not good for the Bears. You know, they've brought in a rookie QB, Justin Fields, and they need to surround him with pieces on offense that will only give him the chance to succeed. And that main guy who I feel they brought in, Daz, has taken a bit of a hit there with that shoulder injury. We'll move on from that negative news on a wee bit more positive stuff. Carson Wentz has been organising summer workouts for the Colts. We know Pat McAfee will be a massive fan of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, this is a class move for Carson Wentz. You know, he's needed a fresh start after Philadelphia. And, you know, so I think going there with his old coach, you know, I think with Frank Reich, I think it's a great situation to find himself in. And I think from what I'm hearing, T.Y. Hilton is a very big fan of him after having, you know, pass catching sessions. And so I think, you know, if Carson can really play at the level he did in his rookie season, you know, the rest of the league better watch out. And for me, you know, I think it will be interesting to really see him. The Colts are a team I'll definitely keep an eye on. But definitely, you know, OTAs at the minute, this is where the work is done. And this is really where, you know, last season we didn't get this opportunity. The players didn't get the chance to, you know, to learn the offense, to learn the schemes, and to learn from each other as well, how the other players, you know, held themselves on the field, you know, their habits and different things. And that all that experience was taken away from them. And so, you know, I think the rookies in particular, you mentioned Justin Fields, those are the type of guys who are really going to learn a lot from this and use this opportunity, you know.
That's it. And you're right. These guys will need the pieces around them to succeed. Moving on to another person who might need pieces around him to succeed. He didn't have it in Detroit. Does he have it in LA? Matt Stafford has apparently found his new favorite target in who? Cooper Kupp. Yeah. The man, the myth, the mystery. Now, Cooper Kupp has been someone who has flown a bit under the radar with Jared Goff thrown to him. I feel like he hasn't done him justice, but maybe this is only just the start of his career here in LA. This is a time when it gets serious for him, when he has a proper QB throwing the ball. What do you think? What do you think on that? What do you think on Cooper Kupp becoming the favorite target there in Los Angeles?
I think this move for Stafford is, you know, fantastic for everybody. Obviously, you know, Sean McVay was growing tired of Jared Goff and his inability maybe to carry out the plays that he had in his playbook. And so I think this is brilliant. And it's going to be brilliant for all those weapons, especially for Cooper Kupp. You know, I am a huge Cooper Kupp fan. I've had the opportunity to see him live in London versus the Bengals, and he had the play of the game, ran a fantastic jet sweep in for the touchdown, and I couldn't believe what I was watching, the speed, the athleticism of him as well. You know, I see I think he's a fantastic piece in that Rams offense, and as you say, he's really gone under the radar, and hopefully with Stafford he gets the credit and receptions and touchdowns, the accolades he deserves. And so, you know, I'll definitely be rooting for him and for Stafford as well.
That's it, and I really want to root for him too, Zach. But you know, my loyalty to the 49ers doesn't allow me to do that, because if he puts up points against us, it's difficult for me to watch.
Division rivals.
We're going to move on to that's it. We're going to move on to the final story of the day here in the breaking news segment. Frank Gore wants another go at this. He wants another go. Now, Frank Gore out of Miami, 38 years old now, drafted in 2005, round 3 by my team, the 49ers. What do you think? And if you think he will come back, who do you think will snap him up?
Yeah, you know, Frank Gore has been a staple in the NFL since 2005, and you know he's played on so many different teams. You know, he's been to San Francisco, Miami, Buffalo, to name a few, and most recently the New York Jets. And you know, obviously, if he feels he can still do this and return in for his 17th season in the NFL, and there's a team out there who believes enough in him, I think it would be fantastic. You know, he's had an incredible career so far. You know, I think he's 3rd overall in career rushing yards of all time with 16,000. And obviously, you know, if the right opportunity comes along, I think Frank Gore can do it. I think, you know, obviously he's not going to be a starter or a second string running back, but I think the 3rd string being a mentor into a young running back room will really help them flourish, and I think it'll be fantastic to watch.
And you mentioned young running back room. There could be a small chance that he plays with his son. His son, Frank Gore Jr., he's a freshman running back at Southern Mississippi. Does he want to play with his son? This is the big question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And, it's not that far away. I think his son, he was born whenever Frank Gore was in college, so he's definitely coming up to that age now where he could see, he could sit up next to his dad. And, I think that'll be incredible. But, I think that would be definitely something that makes headlines, not just, in America, but I think, here in the UK as well, the fact that it's a father-son combo, I think that'll be incredible. What I want to know, Ross, is what situation, if there was a team out there, do you think best suits Frank Gore? Obviously, teams might not because he's 38 years old, but is there a destination, do you think, if you put Frank Gore in, that would make a really good fit?
You're putting me on the spot there.
I apologize.
No, you're all right. Of course, I would want to say 49ers, but that isn't a good fit. Yes, it would be lovely to see him back in the Bay, but, it doesn't work because we've got about 4 or 5 guys sitting on that roster. I think that is a really good question. Do you know what? I wouldn't be opposed for him to go to the Patriots. Let's complete that AFC North set. You say he's been at the Bills, he's been at the Dolphins, he's been at the Jets. Why not complete it all and go to the New England Patriots? I'm sure Bill Belichick wouldn't be opposed to the idea of having the 38-year-old running back on his roster. And I can't think of... They still have James White, I think, yeah?
Yeah, they do.
I think they do. Sony Michel, I think the lost Rex Burkhead, I know that. Why not throw him in the mix, I think that's the ideal kind of, addition there and move there. It's the ideal move for Frank.
Yeah, brilliant answer as well for being put on the spot there, Ross. So congratulations.
Thank you, Zach. And we'll finish it up there. Segment 1 is done. We'll see you in segment 2. We interview with Noah Turner coming up. He's out at James Madison, as I mentioned, and it'll be great to interview him. So we'll see you in a minute.
Okay, welcome to section 2 for our interview with Noah Turner, and we're very excited to be joined with him. He's a tight end out of James Madison University, and it's my pleasure to introduce Noah. Noah, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
We're doing the very best.
Yeah, doing great. Doing great. Yeah, it's amazing that you could come on, and it's as Zach says, it's a pleasure to have you. Jumping into things, football for you, it's massive. Obviously, that's your main sport and you love playing the game. I kind of want to know how you got into it. What's your roots growing up? What was the kind of catalyst for you playing the game of football?
Yeah, well, I actually got a little bit of an interesting story because I never started playing football till high school. So,
right.
It was growing up, I only played basketball, baseball, and that's just kind of how my dad wanted to go about it because, head injury, whatever. But Little League football is not too serious, and I have a lot of football in my blood. My grandpa actually played at Purdue, and my uncle played at Indiana. So
right,
it was always in my blood, and I always knew I was going to play, being a bigger kid growing up and whatnot. And played my freshman year and loved it, and the rest is history.
That's it, because you're 6'3" and you're 242. Am I right in saying?
Yeah.
And that you, as you say, you're tall enough to be playing basketball. If you chose that path, I'm sure you could be playing there. But you're going into this season. You're a redshirt senior, and we kind of want to know what went into this. So you played your first kind of bit of college ball at University of North Carolina. How was that? And I kind of want to know, what was the transition from high school into the kind of Division I football like for you, and what kind of went into the transition there?
Yeah, so deciding to go to North Carolina, it was just it was an unbelievable opportunity. Like I said, my grandfather and uncle played in the Big Ten, and I kind of wanted to go out and do something different. And so going to North Carolina, and I'm from Chicago, so it's pretty far away from home, and it was a great opportunity. I got to learn a lot. I was really on my own. My parents were never there, so I grew a lot as a football player, but also like outside the game and whatnot. And it was an awesome experience. I got to be around a lot of great players and learn a lot of good things. Had some really good coaches, and I think it really propelled me and helped me grow through the game. And it's kind of landed me at JMU. And stuff like that. So yeah, it was awesome.
And obviously, University of North Carolina, you're from Chicago. There's another link there with Michael Jordan. Obviously, North Carolina is a very big basketball school, and we all know of Michael Jordan through probably The Last Chance U here in the UK. Not Last Chance U. What was the documentary called? The Last Dance, of course.
Yes.
Last Dance. Yep. Yeah. So that's really cool. And you alluded to the fact that you used to play for University of North Carolina, and now you play for JMU. Take us through that. What went into that decision? And, was there moments for you to learn life lessons there, a moment of adversity for you?
Oh, I mean, definitely. I think, a lot of my time at UNC, I struggled with, I didn't get, the opportunity to play as much as I would like. And, that it is what it is, and I'm not salty about it. And I think it really made me a great player. I had great players in front of me, tight ends that I got to learn a bunch from. And, when the new staff came in, I played one season under them, and then kind of looked different directions. And I just thought I'd have better opportunities going elsewhere. And it was very difficult, I'll be honest, because it was, the end of the season, and then it was maybe like I committed to JMU pretty early on, but what really threw it all off was, COVID. It was, I was transitioning schools during that entire time. And that, I think in general, probably going to a different school was pretty hard, but, COVID on top of that definitely added some adversity. And, like you said, it was a huge learning experience for me, because it's almost like getting up and just moving and doing a new job somewhere else that you've never worked there. You don't know anybody and anything along those lines, but, now being here for a year or whatnot, it's been an unbelievable opportunity, and I'm very thankful to have it. So I think I grew a lot definitely as a player, because I feel those 4 years of being at UNC didn't get to show my capabilities or talents too much, not as much as I would like. And, but I kept working, kept busting my butt off. And now hopefully I get to show the rest of those abilities and skills out here at JMU.
Yeah.
Yes, because you missed the 2017 season due to an injury.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yep.
What injury was that, Noah? Could you fill us in on that?
Yeah, I had a knee surgery. I had meniscus, and I got it repaired. And, that was after redshirting my freshman year. It was like 2 seasons right off the bat I wasn't playing. So it was, got put behind the 8 ball a little bit, but, with that scenario. But, I never saw it as a downfall or anything like that, and just an opportunity to keep getting better.
And then the 2018-2019 seasons for University of North Carolina, you played in 24 career games, which is, I suppose it's not as many as you appeared, and you didn't start those games, but that gave you a wee bit of experience on the field. Then moving over to JMU, you got to play 2 years there, am I right? You got to play a 2020 season, which was you finished the season 14-2, unbeaten at home. 8-0 at home, am I right in saying? Sorry, maybe more than that. But unbeaten at home anyway. And then this spring season, you went 7-1, unbeaten at home as well. So you've kind of talked us through, how it changed you as a player and how you got much more reps on the field. Your tape does tell the tale. I watched some of your highlights against Sam Houston there, and amazing performance from you. What would you say is your strong suits kind of both on the field in terms of your ability, but off the field as well in terms of your intangibles?
Yeah. Well, coming in high school, I ran a triple option offense, and that's majority blocking. Normally, triple option offenses don't even run with the tight end, but my high school did. And my strong suit's always been blocking. I've always been a great blocker. But then once I got to the college level, I realized myself, got told by coaches, so on, that, you got to be able to do both. And I thought I could do both in high school, and I did, but it was more so I would just run down the field and, we'd have a quarterback throw it up to me, and I would just catch and run because we ran the ball 70 times a game. And, so I'd say right now my strong suits are definitely blocking. That's where I feel really strong at, confident at. And, I'm just starting to scrape the surface now with running routes and getting crafty and, having the ball and being able to run after the catch. And that's, what I'm going to continue to work on. I'm going to continue to work on both and just improve as all-around tight end.
And with that, you ask your UK fan a bit about, if you ask them about the tight end position, they'll be able to tell you there's two parts: there's blocking and receiving. And I'm kind of curious, like, do you have a preference with that? And also, how do you sharpen both skills, your blocking and receiving, and staying ready, for those opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, anytime I ever get this question asked, I say, it's hard for me to decide because there's nothing better than being able to bury a guy and put him in the ground and then come back the next play and score a touchdown. So it's like, I like both sides of the aspect. I think obviously the blocking part is not the glorious part of the position, but it's part of it, and it's like, I think you watch any tight end play in a big game or whatnot like that, 80% of the time he's sitting there blocking somebody, nobody really cares, but then he gets the big play or whatnot like that. And I can't say I have much of a preference for either of them. I just, I take that as a part of my identity and as a player, and that I can do both. And it's awesome to have. In terms of, sharpening those skills, it's just a long time ago, I just adopted a motto of just, focusing on details and, just really paying attention to whether it's blocking or catching. I watch guys, run routes all the time in person. Even if it's a slot receiver that's, a million times faster than me, I can still learn something from how he's running, how he's doing that or this. And then even watching an offensive lineman, like, how does he move? I mean, it's those are like the most, unbelievable humans to watch. They're 6'5" and 320 pounds, and they're running around like, I know. And it's so overshadowed in football what an offensive lineman can do. But when you watch a good one play, you can really learn a lot, especially as a tight end. So I think it's, I'm really into attention to detail with anything I'm doing, blocking, running, catching, formations, anything like that. And then it's just, busting my butt like day in, day out, and just keep grinding and believing in myself that I'm going to get better the next day and so on.
Going back to that Sam Houston game, there was a specific play. It's up on your Instagram account. The QB kind of dropped back. You were initially blocking. It was a blocking assignment. Then you kind of broke from that. You ran downfield. The QB found you in open space. You ran to about, say, the 15. Got tackled, broke the tackle, and then ended up at the 2-yard line, nearly in the end zone. Not quite, but an amazing play there. James Madison has an amazing kind of culture around it. And you look at that game against Sam Houston, even a team like that, who went on to now win the spring season there. What is the culture there, and how does that come about that, you do go unbeaten at home over 2 seasons? What kind of goes on behind the scenes there that leads to that?
I think it's definitely the coaching, and it's just, there's that winning mentality here. I'd say it's the coaching, it's the players, and the biggest thing, it's just, you win here. It's like you guys said, SCS, they're competitive every year. We're winning, going to the national championship almost every year and going far. But it's that environment. It's around the school. It's around with the coaches. It's in the facility. It's with the players. It's like head to toe, there's that swagger, or I'd call it swagger, just on campus that we win here, and it seems because how many schools, could say that every year? You got in the FBS level, you got Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, you got all those big teams, and you're kind of like, what's different, and those are only 4 teams that are competing with the championship every year. But then you come down to the FCS level and you got, North Dakota State, you got us, throwing a few other teams there. And it's like, it's the same thing. It's everyone's competing for that national championship, regardless of level. And I just feel like that's what we have here. It's that, everyone works hard. They understand that we're a championship team, and you just carry that. And it's illuminating throughout the facility and the coaches and just everywhere on campus here. It's awesome.
I think, as we watch the NFL, and it's the Patriots as the team that's been dominant for years. And I think, whenever you reflect upon that and you're explaining it, I definitely see that within Bill Belichick and the way that those players command themselves this is the way we do it. We know we win, and this is just the expectation. And, that's incredible. And my question to you as well is, you've played at high school football, you've played at college level, University of North Carolina, and now at JMU. And is there a moment that stands out for you as a highlight, a career highlight, one particular game maybe, or a play or an achievement?
I think the first was probably that Sam Houston catch I had. It was the first time that I've really gotten to, I've had a few catches here and there, but that was the first time in a big stage and atmosphere like that I got the ball in my hands, and I was just, let's go. I can, it was an awesome opportunity to get that. And, very grateful for that. And I think another one was just not in, what's involved with football, but as was receiving my first scholarship. I think that was a moment because it was only after 2 years of me ever playing football. And I got a scholarship offer from University of Illinois. And it was just kind of one of those moments like, wow, maybe I do belong here, and maybe I can play football. Because at the time, I was just starting to play. So it was, both those moments are very standout for me. And I think I'm very grateful to have both of them.
You mentioned your great years there in University of North Carolina years where you're kind of growing and then moving to JMU where you've kind of got a wee bit more kind of you've got more reps, you've got more opportunity, and then you have that amazing catch against Sam Houston. Obviously the path finishes trying to get to the NFL. That's your final destination. How, we do see JMU alumni make it in the league. We see Ben DiNucci. You maybe played with him last year. Daniel Brown, another tight end, he's with the Jets. Are you confident that you can make it at the next level? And if you are, which I 100% believe, watching your highlights and tape, that I believe in you, what are you doing at the moment to give yourself the success or the chance of success at that next level?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like pretty surreal that you even, say that, or we have the conversation to say it. And I really think it comes down to just, it's been self-belief, every day. And, since, I started playing the game since North Carolina, and what I've learned through all the ups and downs, it's just the consistency of, I can play in the NFL. Maybe it's at this moment, I'm not really showing it to anyone or doing anything like that, but it's like, that's constant self-belief. It feels like I haven't stopped believing that I could do that since, I walked on campus at UNC or started playing in high school. And, I've kind of touched on it already earlier, is just, it's a day-by-day process. My goal is to make it to the NFL. Of course, that's in the future, but I gotta start tomorrow. I gotta do something tomorrow that's going to get me one step closer. And then it goes on to the team. What can I do to help this team win more, especially being this close to, the big game and whatnot. So it's just a day-by-day process, and, and self-belief that I am going to make it there. And first, let's win with this team and get the season going. I'm ready to go already, even though it's weird. We just finished playing in the spring.
That's brilliant. And I think, it's sort of goes back to that old mantra of, we get 1% better every day. And, it's just continually improving on your game. And I think, It's so important to remember that, and so important to be committed to that. And, and so Ross and I are definitely going to be rooting for you. And hopefully, whenever you're playing in the NFL, you'll come back. You'll come back and talk to us on the podcast.
Yeah,
and
of course.
When you're with an NFL team, which I 100% believe, because there's so many guys getting their chance in the league. And Jack and I 100% after watching your tape, we think that you can make it at the next level, and we're looking forward to seeing you on a Sunday. Let's move over to a few trivial questions now, Noah. There's a few big moves in the NFL. I don't know if you keep up with them all, but I think the major one, especially being a tight end yourself, Tim Tebow has moved to tight end. Yeah. Let's get your opinion on that. What do you think?
It's been pretty hard. There's a lot of indifference with it, I think. There's a lot of people are saying that, does he really deserve it? He hasn't played football in 10 years. And, I really like what Tim Tebow, represents and who he is as a man. He tried to play quarterback, didn't really work out in the NFL. He's a great college player. He went and tried to play baseball, and now he's playing a tight end position. It just seems like he's regardless of, I don't even know his age, he's probably close to 30, if not older now, but it just seems like he's a kid that doesn't stop dreaming, really. It's like, oh, he didn't work out as a quarterback, I'm going to go try baseball now, regardless of what level you make it. I think it's a, cool opportunity, but I also see the hindsight of who is the other tight end that was maybe fighting for him. And now Tim Tebow just steps in. He's never played the position, it takes some, it's a little different to
because you'd hate to be that guy who's worked all his life to be that tight, to get that tight end spot on the Jaguars, and then for him to just walk in and take it, it would be awful. I want to move kind of across to JMU guys who I mentioned here in the league. Ben DiNucci and also Mitch Trubisky. I don't know if you had any time with him when you were in North Carolina there. What do you like those guys? Do you get along with those guys? What do you think? How Ben DiNucci, he was drafted in 2020. He got a bit of an opportunity this year when Dak Prescott went down. Now it maybe didn't work out for him as much as he'd like to hope, but I think if he trains hard and continues on, he's obviously still with Dallas, and he will get more opportunities there. Mitchell Trubisky, obviously he's had a few years in the NFL, maybe hasn't worked out. Now he has reached the playoffs a few times. He's on the Bills now. Maybe a second chance, a chance to kind of recuperate and refresh the system. What are your opinions on those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I never got to know DiNucci too much, but I've heard nothing but great things about him from the guys around here. I've heard he's just kind of the same thing I was talking about. He's got that swagger to him. He's got that winner mentality. And, he had his opportunity very early on at Dallas, which is, it's hard. It's really hard, especially, a quarterback position is very difficult. And, he got put on the spotlight, and, I've heard they have positive feedback for him and whatnot like that. But Mitch was somebody, I got to know really well. Obviously, being from Chicago, he got drafted there. So he lived really close to me, about 10, 15 minutes from me, from my actual home. And, he was a great player to have at UNC, and just, he's a great leader. It was awesome to watch him then, even though, I was just on the sidelines redshirting and whatnot. And, I'd go home and I'd get to throw and catch with him every once in a while. And he's just, he's a great kid. I hope nothing but success for him. And he's had a tough go in Chicago, but, I was sad to see him leave. And, I think he's a great kid, and he's going to be in the NFL for a really long time.
And something that we like to do in the podcast, just to finish off, is, now I know we're in the month of June, but football never sleeps, football never stops. Never. And so we've been asking every single guest we've had way too early Super Bowl predictions. So Noah, we want to know, who do you think will be hoisting the Lombardi Trophy next February?
I want to put Tom Brady back in there again.
Oh, he said it. You're one of those guys. No, you see, I'm sick and tired of seeing him in Super Bowls.
I couldn't give you an opinion on another team, but I just love. I think he's going to do it again, and I think he goes in there and at least makes it again. I think I got to go with Tom Brady. I think he wins it all, and then he calls it quits.
Yeah, it's a safe bet, Noah.
You think
he calls it quits?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I see personally.
That's a hot take.
I think it'll be, Adam Vinatieri age or Frank, well, I know Frank Gore's younger than him, but he'll be well into his 60s before he decides, actually, I've got enough jewelry.
Right, come on, Zach, now let's calm down
I could see the Chiefs in there again, too.
Yeah.
Chiefs, I see, this is the thing about the Chiefs. They've got a completely new offensive line. I don't think that it meshes together as nicely as you might think this year. A team that I do think will kind of reach the big game is the Chargers. And it's strange, last year, they finished with was it about 3 or 4 wins? Justin Herbert, a guy from Oregon, he might lift them out of that rut.
Yeah, that's a great call. He's a great quarterback.
Another question actually on that note that I want to ask is, just to finish things off completely, college, you look at the championship game there, it was Alabama and Ohio State. Who do you think will be in that big game? 2021, 2022. That's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, difficult question because I'm going to put Alabama in there again. I think I'm going to, but it's hard just because all those schools like Ohio State, they don't have Justin Fields. Clemson, like what's Clemson going to be without a Trevor Lawrence?
Exactly.
I know. Well, they've got.
I hope to God that we find some sleeper teams in there this year. But I think, of course, Alabama will be in the championship game, and we'll go with Clemson because I know they got that young stud quarterback. Yeah,
DJ. It's hard name to pronounce now. Is it? It starts with a U. Something. Could be wrong now, but no, I do hope there's a few sleeper teams in there.
Yeah, I hope. UNC. We'll see. They lost a lot of guys to the NFL, but Sam Howell. I hope to God they get their chance to get in there. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
100%. And here, James Madison for it all next year. What do you think?
Yeah. 100%. I can guarantee 100%. That one.
I'm with you there. Noah, we're backing you this year. It's been great to have you on, Noah. Thanks so much for joining us. And when you make it to the pros, we'll have you on again because we have said before, we 100% believe in you, Noah. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for everything.
Welcome to segment 3 of the podcast. It was amazing to have Noah Turner on there from JMU. Hope you all enjoyed the interview. I know we did, didn't we, Zach?
Yeah, absolutely. Noah was very, very generous with his time there, but he took us on a fantastic journey throughout his football career, and gave us great insight to playing not only at JMU, but also University of North Carolina and how, he transferred to James Madison, the reasons why, and also playing at the tight end position, which I know, Ross, is something for us that's very rare. We get to chat with a player, he plays at a certain position, and I'm sure that was great insight for you as well.
Yeah, I love talking to players who play kind of different positions, and it's good to get a kind of varying, experience of, we've talked to a QB week 1, we've talked to linebacker week 2, and now we're moving back to the offensive side, but a wee bit different. You've kind of got that variation of having to block and having to receive, as we talked through with Noah. And it's really interesting to get that insight firsthand, especially a guy who's played at he's playing at Division 1 level, and he's played for the University of North Carolina and James Madison University, 2 very good schools to play at. And as he mentioned himself, he got an offer from University of Illinois, which was interesting to hear. Surprising that he didn't take that. That's where he's from, and that's his home kind of state. So that's surprising. But I'm sure that he had his reasons. We didn't get into that with him. Maybe next time that can be a point of discussion. But he's a guy that, he's got a great personality. He's obviously got the on-field ability. I would be very surprised if he didn't make it at the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something we didn't touch on in our interview with him. But, coming out of high school, he was very highly rated at his position. He rated 19th tight end nationally and the 22nd overall player in Illinois, according to ESPN. So obviously, the talent and the ability is definitely there. And he went through everything with us, about playing. And, for me, I really enjoyed learning about the preparation and also, his experiences. And I think for me, what stood out the most is his his approach to the game, his attitude as well. About he kept mentioning about how every day is a chance to improve, and I think that's an attitude that, yes, you need in everyday life, but to go to the NFL, that's something that you really need to focus on, to have that work ethic. And for us, I really hope it works out for him. I'd love to see Noah, pull on the jersey for an NFL team. I'd certainly be rooting for him.
Definitely, yep. Yeah, and he's obviously got his contacts in the NFL, as we've heard. Mitchell Trubisky played with him in 2016 at the University of North Carolina, and then Ben DiNucci, QB. He didn't really know Ben too much, but from what he did know about him, he mentioned that swagger he had.
Yeah.
And I saw that coming across even when he stepped on the field for the Cowboys. And two guys who are probably going to be successful in the NFL to some degree. I mean, they're successful enough to be there.
Absolutely.
So that's great to hear. And let's move over now to NFL. So we're on the topic of the Pro League. Let's just give some players who we think will break out this year. Zach, go ahead. Give me a player who you think. We're going to mention 3 each. We'll take it in turn. But Zach, you start us off. Who do you think will break out this year?
Okay, so whenever you mentioned that this is what we were going to discuss for the podcast, I had to take a step back and think about all of the players from different positions, and I tried my best to be as fair as possible. However, I did choose 2 offensive guys and 1 defensive guy. I'm going to kick off with my defensive player, who is Isiah Simmons. He is was a very highly recruited draft pick, a draft prospect last year. He was drafted first overall in the first round, the 8th overall pick, and went to the Arizona Cardinals. And he came out of Clemson and was recruited because of his hybrid capability on defense. This was a player who could play at linebacker, yes, but also safety and edge rusher. And for that, a lot of teams were very enthusiastic about having him and researching into him because of his talents and his capabilities. However, the hype and everything that went into him during the draft didn't really translate into his first year. He had a very, very tough week 1 debut against your 49ers, giving up a 76-yard touchdown to Raheem Mostert, and then didn't really find his feet until week 7 when he intercepted Russell Wilson in overtime to set up a field goal attempt. But the rest of the season didn't really take off for him. And so, for me, I think this next season will really see the true Isiah Simmons once he has his feet wet in the NFL. What are your thoughts on that pick, Ross?
That's a very good pick, Zach. Isiah Simmons isn't someone who actually came to my mind because, he is a high draft pick. He was up there, I think, in the top 10. And he's a hybrid player. He actually, coming out of college, they weren't even sure where he was going to fit on the defense. He could play safety, he could play linebacker, not unlike our man Manuel Naj.
Yes, exactly.
Who we interviewed last week. He's kind of that hybrid player. But, he has a lot of expectations on him this year. And as you said, I think, he probably will pull through in the end, but it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting story.
Definitely.
I'm going to move over now to my player that I've got. Now we're going to move to the offensive side of the ball, the offensive. And so we look who had the number 1 pick this year, the Jaguars. Okay, Trevor Lawrence, of course he had to be that number 1 pick, but we look at the team he has around him and the offense he has around him. Who are the wide receivers that are sticking out in that team? I'll tell you who I think it is. Laviska Shenault out of Colorado Boulder University. He's a guy that he had actually quite a good rookie season last year. But you have to remember who was throwing him the ball. It was Mike Glennon. Now, you can say what you want about Mike, but let's all kind of agree on the fact that he isn't a franchise quarterback. We'll put it like that. He's only 22 years old, and he's still young. He's going into his 2nd year, and as a rookie, he had 58 receptions, 5 TDs, and 600 yards. He'll benefit massively from Trevor Lawrence coming into that offense. I would imagine that those stats will be times by at least 2. Laviska Shenault will be a Pro Bowl wide receiver after this year is said and done.
Ooh, that's a bold take there from Ross.
Yep.
And we'll
That
see
is-
this
that
time
is
next year
big.
whether you were right. I do agree.
Will.
I think the Trevor Lawrence effect that will affect everybody in Jacksonville, but it definitely will help his offensive weapons. And it definitely matters who's throwing the ball, and that sort of takes off. I'm going to take off where you led there, and I'm going to float another player who I feel is in the similar position, and I'm going to choose Darnell Mooney from Chicago. Drafted last year in the 5th round at the 173rd pick. He came from Tulane, which is in New Orleans, Tulane College. And in my opinion, I think the Bears have found a gem. His rookie season, yes, he had difficulties and didn't really, put much up for you to attract your eye. 61 receptions with 631 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. No, it's nothing to wow you by, but he did prove himself to be capable of going head to head with the best defenders in the league. Go and look up him versus Jalen Ramsey in their matchup. He juked and crossed right Jalen Ramsey out of his shoes, and Jalen Ramsey, as you know, is a dog. So
I do.
In my opinion, he's proven himself a number 2 wide receiver behind Allen Robinson. And it was a tough year for the Bears. Not just on offense, but just completely. You had your troubles with quarterback. Nick Foles was there for a minute. Then the next minute, Mitchell Trubisky was in as well. And so for me, I think with the drafting of Justin Fields, you're going to have a bit more, a concrete solution to that problem. And I think Fields is going to love Darnell Mooney. And so I think he's going to have a great second year in the NFL.
That's a really good shout. Darnell Mooney is one of those guys that has been knocked about the conversation a wee bit for even kind of offensive rookie of the year. I heard some people even putting it as far as that. Let's kind of go over to the other side of the ball again. A player who was maybe put forward for defensive rookie player of the year last year. He's on a defense with a guy that went 2nd overall in last year's draft. Chase Young. It's not now hold your horses. It's not him. Chase Young took most of the headlines at Washington last year, let's admit. But let's look to the secondary for a minute for Washington. A major player in that secondary, Kamren Curl.
Ooh.
He's out of Arkansas. He's a safety. And he's a legend. Oh my goodness, watching him play. Even in the playoffs, he had a massive game against the Bucs. Very, very impressive rookie season. Finished the season with 88 total tackles, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions, and 1 touchdown. Now, to be honest, that's a pretty good year in itself.
Not bad.
If he takes that jump this year, I don't want to know where he ends up. This man could be wrecking dreams. 2021, he goes from good to great this year, and I think he will be one of these guys that just kind of put themselves in the same shoes as maybe like in 5 years' time, he could be in the same shoes as like an Earl Thomas or a Cam Chancellor. Or, Washington are known for their good defensive line, and they don't get a lot of credit, in the secondary. But this is a guy that deserves credit, and Kamren Curl, I would watch out for him this season.
Ooh, see, that's someone I definitely did not think of, but I like it, Ross. I like it, and so for that, I'm on the hype train with him, and that sort of takes me on to my next guy, a guy who I joined the hype train on in his rookie season. He was drafted 32nd overall, the last pick in the 1st round to the Kansas City Chiefs, coming from the national championship winning LSU. His name, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or as I like to call him, the Fresh Prince of Hilaire. He was a guy.
I like that.
Yeah, you like it?
I like that. Put that on a t-shirt.
I'm getting that copyrighted. He was a guy who, whenever he was drafted, I heard the hype on Good Morning Football on NFL Network. He's not just a running back. He's a receiver who can play running back. And so for that, I bought in. I even have to admit, I may have spent my 1st overall or my 1st round draft pick on fantasy and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which maybe looking back wasn't the greatest decision. However, after week 1, I was feeling pretty good about myself. He had a fantastic debut on Thursday night against the Texans, finishing with 138 yards and 1 touchdown. However, from there on, he finished the season with 803 yards, 4 touchdowns, 297 receiving yards and a touchdown. And after week 7 against the Bills, which was his last real standout game, the Chiefs sort of turned to their absolute stud of a quarterback in order to win games and threw the ball. And so for that, Clyde Edwards-Helaire never really found his footing. But why I like him so much is because I think that after a season in which COVID disrupted him, all these guys are rookies, and this is the reason why I've picked rookies, is because you put yourself in that position. Imagine that you are coming into the NFL. You need every chance of preparation you can before you take field in September for your first NFL game. These guys played with disrupted OTAs, virtual walkthroughs. They didn't have preseason games, so whenever you saw them play in September in regular season games, that was their first chance of playing NFL football. And so for me, these guys are really thrown into the deep end. And I think with more time this offseason, obviously OTAs are happening in a minute, more time to prepare, to learn the NFL, to learn the system, the team system. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they have a new vamp O-line. They have Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who opted out last year to go to Canada and work in a hospital during the pandemic. He's back. And also Damian Williams has gone to the Bears after he opted out. And so Clyde Edwards-Helaire has shoes to fill. Will he fill those shoes? I think he will, but we will find out.
We will find out. We will. And I've actually, to finish things off, I am going to give you another running back, a rookie running back. Is it any surprise that AJ Dillon's on this list? No, I don't think so. The Green Bay Packers running back, 23 years old, and he's out of Boston College. Now, AJ had 46 rushing attempts last year, and he gained 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wasn't really given that much of an opportunity. He was kind of in the depth chart behind the likes of Aaron Jones, who's good in his own right. He's a household name by now, and Jamel Williams, who has since moved to the Lions, opening up that second spot on the depth chart, which AJ Dillon will be more than capable to fulfill. He seemed to be a bit of a feature back last year for Green Bay. You look at the playoffs, he seemed to kind of come in third down situations, kind of red zone. And I think he will be given more of a role this year, more of a chance to succeed in a Green Bay team that is, well, it's stacked enough. It's got enough kind of offensive weapons to see them through. That is, if Aaron Rodgers comes back. But AJ Dillon, in his own right, I feel like he has, I don't want to say Pro Bowl because I've made that big claim about another player, Laviska Shenault, who's he's definitely worth it. But AJ Dillon isn't far behind him this year. And I think if all goes well, Green Bay could maybe even look at putting him as the starter next year if Aaron Jones decides to move on. Maybe they might get quite a lot in the trade for Aaron Jones. And then AJ Dillon's in that spot. Now, Zach, I know you have a funny name for AJ Dillon, maybe another T-shirt worthy name, as we mentioned earlier. Could you maybe provide me with that, and so the listeners can kind of hear what you're thinking about AJ?
Well, actually, I can't take any credit. It's definitely not my name. It's definitely a name that I have seen that Packers Twitter has called. And it turns out that AJ Dillon has even adopted this name, the Quad Father and Quadzilla.
Okay.
And I was reading actually that AJ Dillon has now decided to call one of his quads the Quad Father and the other quad Quadzilla. I like that. You know
what? I might go back on that decision after hearing that. I might have to kind of take his name out of the hat. But no. Well, that being said, he's still very much a threat on offense, and I think that he will have a breakout season this year. Zach, it's been a pleasure as always doing this podcast with you, and it's been great to have Noah on. And we're back next week again for episode 4. Can you believe it? Episode 4. We've done 3 of these. We're going to be doing another next week, next Tuesday. We have another guest on, Zach. We have an Alabama guy.
Yeah. I am very much looking forward to talking about this. And also, very, very recently, he's changed teams and is going to Jackson State. More information will be revealed next week, but we can't thank you enough for listening. You've been listening to the Hard Count Sports podcast with Ross and Zach. And if you enjoyed it, please be a friend and tell a friend. I stole that line from Pat McAfee. I'm not going to take any credit. But if you do like it, please support us, like and subscribe, and make sure to check out our website as well. But until next week, thank you very much and goodbye.